Hi, I'm Kaitlyn.
Hi, I'm Rebecca.
We're not from Memphis, but we love it.
Welcome to Memphis Type History, the podcast. Hi, Kaitlyn.
Hi, Rebecca.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm sleepy.
Oh, that's right. It's your morning.
It's my morning. It's your evening.
It is. And it's getting cold here in Memphis, Kaitlyn. It's starting to feel like fall.
Same here. I'm not too happy about it, to be real.
Yeah, same here. Not the happiest. But I know it does make people happy, so it's worth noting.
That's true. They like their pumpkin spice stuff.
Mm-hmm. And
this is like the first time. This is the first time I think we've talked about something current that's actually going to be current. Like, we're talking about fall, and this episode is actually going to go out.
It is. It's going to happen.
Fall.
Mm-hmm. In a little less than 2 weeks, this is going to go out.
Yeah.
And it's because it's for a special holiday. Can anyone guess what that holiday is? And by anybody, I'm really talking to you, Kaitlyn, because nobody else can answer.
I was going to pause, let people guess. Halloween? The spooky holiday?
Yes.
All right. So we're just talking about, like, what, downtown history or how the Memphis Bridge got made. Is that what we're doing in honor of Halloween?
Yeah, and who is responsible for creating the pumpkin?
Oh, yeah, they're from Memphis?
Yeah. Who created the pumpkin pie? So anyway, where are we headed on this? Oh, we're going to treat the audience to some ghost stories.
Ooh.
And Kaitlyn.
Clearly my heart is in it.
Yeah. Kaitlyn, you have a ghost story for us, don't you?
I do. I have the story of beasts and maniacs in the night.
Wow.
Yeah. The first one is a maniac in the night. My story takes place just north of Memphis.
Okay. In Millington.
Yes. I wanted like a, but all right. Just north of Memphis.
Oh, wait. Okay.
In Memphis, in Millington, there are a couple of smokestacks.
Okay.
And it is said to be haunted by the spirit of a maniac called the PIGMAN.
Weird. Legend
has it that those smokestacks are on top of an underground storage area for weapons from World War II.
Odd.
And one day, a horrible accident left a man terribly, awfully disfigured.
Wait, but this is you're talking about a true story, right?
I have no idea.
Okay.
This is I didn't research the ghost story to see if...
But this is a true ghost story.
This is a true ghost story.
Okay.
Basically, his nose was burned off, leaving him looking like a pig man.
Whoa!
And so now, yes. So now he haunts the area of the smokestacks, looking for new victims. And when he gets them, he lets out a pig scream.
Like that?
Yes, exactly. You've seen him.
No. I thought you were going to tell me he finds victims to find the nose that he wants to replace with his, but I guess that didn't happen.
No,
Instead,
maybe.
he just squeals. That's awesome. I'll have to go find those smokestacks.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a story to tell you.
Oh, please. I'm not telling any more stories.
Yeah, no, I actually have a personal ghost story that I've never told anybody.
Oh.
Yeah, and I had never even told Michael this because he would work overnights, and I was always afraid if he'd heard about it, he would be upset.
I'm sorry, but is this a ghost story or is someone came into your house for real story?
No, I would go out for night walks story, and I saw a ghost.
And you were like, oh, I'm just going to pretend this was a ghost.
No.
Okay.
So when I was living on I used to live on Mud Island. That was the first apartment complex we lived in or lived at. And Michael used to work overnights. I don't know if you remember that or not.
Yeah.
And we also had a dog named Justice. And I would walk him after Michael would go to work late at night. It was probably like 10-ish or so. And it kind of became consistent where one of the neighbors, I kind of got to know. Her name was Caroline. And it seemed odd because she maybe was like 11 or 12, but she would be out there. I know, it seemed really strange.
So you became friends with a child.
Well, she liked Justice, and I didn't want her to be alone. So we would walk. And on the river, it's pretty lit really well, and there's enough people. So it's no big deal. But there was always one person, like, down by the river, I noticed, that would just stare at the river. And she was always down there. And it looked like she was probably crying, but I could never tell. But so there was one night when I was walking Justice and Caroline came out again. She wants to walk, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And she seems kind of like strange, a little sad. I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let me go put Justice up because he was acting weird. I took him back to the apartment, and we went out to the river. It was just me and her this time, and we're walking, and we just started singing some CCR. You know, what is it? That Midnight Special? The Midnight Special.
Okay.
Shine a light on me. Anyway, and for some reason, when we get to a certain part of the sidewalk near the river, she looks at me and she says, "Do you want to see something scary?" Yeah.
My answer to that question is always, no thanks.
Yeah. And I said, okay. And she said, really? Do you really want to see something scary? I thought, yeah, sure, I don't mind. And she said, okay, go down and talk to that woman by the river. I said, seriously? And she said, yeah, go down there. She's like, I won't tell you why, but just go down there. And I thought, okay, fine. She's kind of daring me. And so I did it. And I get up closer to this woman who's by the river. And I say, is everything okay? And she turns around and it's La Llorona.
What is that? I'm sorry. I don't know.
It's okay. It was just a ghost story. It didn't really happen. I just did it to scare you.
Oh, I was really into this.
Yeah, I thought I'd give you a ghost story, Kaitlyn.
What a good job.
Yeah, no problem. La Llorona is this woman who killed her children in the river. And
it was that's what Lotto.
Yeah. She, and so she's by the river. She cries because she drowned her children.
Is this a common
Well,
thing?
not, yeah, I mean, I turned it into my story. But yeah, I mean.
Wow.
But yeah, so there's La Llorona's at the Mud Island River. But she's not really, but I just made her into that.
Oh my goodness, you did so good.
Oh,
I was
thanks.
like, man, this is a real ghost story. You really fooled me.
I just thought it'd be fun to share.
No, I like it.
Okay.
You really tricked me. I'm never going to believe anything you say.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
That was amazing.
But on to the real stories. Because the truth is, as you'll hear on both of the recordings or interviews I did, I confess that I would like to have the experience of seeing an actual ghost. So that's also why I told that story.
I think it would be cool.
Uh-huh. Well,
because then it's like, then you can know for sure, do you believe or not?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Because it's like, if you see one, then it's like, all right, I'm a believer, but...
Well, I am a believer, but I just haven't experienced it.
I'm not really a believer.
Oh, we're on the both different sides of the bridge.
But I like the stories, and I do think there are things that happen that we can't explain. So I'm not one to be like, oh, I bet this is what happened. But I don't really think I believe in ghosts.
Yeah. Well, I almost guarantee you, after you listen to these stories, you probably will.
Okay.
And you have some yourself. So do you want to introduce who you recorded, or should we move on to...
Let's go back. Let's ping pong.
Okay.
You share one that you recorded with me, and then I'll share one that I recorded with you. So, okay.
The first set of stories that I'm going to have you listen to, Kaitlyn, as well as our listeners, is from Ashley Carroll. Her and her family, she's got a husband and 4 kids, and they live in the Snowden neighborhood, which is known to have its set of hauntings. I don't know if I want to call it hauntings, because I don't know if hauntings implies that it's poltergeist or scary. But although I think there may have been some around the street, I know that the neighborhood has hosted ghost tours before. I was a kind of a tour guide, in a sense, for the Carroll's home one year for the ghost tours. And I think that may have been how I even knew about their house being haunted or having a ghost. And I'd gotten they had shared a couple of stories with me at the time, but it wasn't until me and Ashley sat down that I learned about how much this ghost was in their life, like a part of their lives. And so,
Whoa.
Yeah. So without further ado, here's Ashley. Let me get closer to you because I like you.
Okay.
We'll cozy up. That's what you do when you tell ghost stories.
Yeah. If I jump on your lap, don't get weirded out.
It is broad daylight.
Yeah. That doesn't make a difference. Ghosts come anytime.
It's true.
Please state your name.
Ashley Carroll.
And you don't have to give your address, but you can give the neighborhood that you live in.
Yep, we're in Annesdale Snowden, which is the stepchild of Central Gardens on the other side of Lamar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know much? I know that this neighborhood has hosted ghost tours, or at least one in the past. Is that I assume it's because this place is known to be haunted?
Yeah, I kind of wonder if a lot of little neighborhoods have stories like that. It's just that I know my neighbor, so we talk about it. But I feel like we're a stone's throw from Elmwood. And so a lot of that sort of carries over. We've got a lot of neighbors that are super involved in the cemetery and are just sort of into that kind of thing. And so the stories spread, but we definitely have a neighborhood collection of small incidences, and ours being maybe one of the more ghosted houses of the neighborhood. But it might also just be because I'm home and I pay attention, and I don't know. Who knows?
So I know that you guys have a ghost, and I feel like I remember you giving him a name. Did you call him Henry?
So we did. We called him Henry for a long time, just because I needed to say who it was that was doing something. Like, that the toilet just flushed on its own. There goes Henry again. That would be an example. But after we had kind of a crazy story of getting old pictures of the house. I'll tell that maybe, but after that, and after a man that came through the home tour told me that he saw our ghost and that she was a woman.
Oh.
We then called her Henrietta. Because we realized it was a female energy in the house and not a male one. So she's now Henrietta.
Henrietta.
Yep.
All right, where would you like to start?
And maybe she was offended that we kept calling her Henry.
Probably. I would
be too. Like, come on. Like,
you just assume it's a man.
I had a bowl cut in 3rd grade, and it still made me mad when people thought I was a boy. It would make me mad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Henrietta.
Did people call you Ash?
Ash. Asher.
Yeah.
No. No.
Okay. Yeah. So where would you like to start to get us introduced into how you came about? I mean, obviously, you probably didn't buy the house knowing that there's
it's not listed like on the realty sheet for sure.
Like amenities.
Haunted. Yeah, which some people think's a selling point, I guess.
I am. I'm a little envious.
Yeah. Well, here I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So John found this house. It's huge and ridiculous, and like 5,000 square feet when you include like the basement and the attic, and it's overwhelming when we first walked through it, simply because of size, and it had been left alone for several years. It was a foreclosure. And so the first couple of times he walked me through the house, I was already spooked. Just because I didn't know where I was, and everything echoed, and it was old, and...
Do you have pictures of it, by the way?
Yeah.
That we could share?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so... But that definitely didn't make me think there was a ghost or anything like that.
It just felt abandoned?
Yeah, it just had a spooky feel to it, especially without furniture in it, or the walls were weird. It just was weird.
Yeah.
So after we moved in, it might have been the very first night we were in the house. It was early, if not first night, first week. And I had fallen asleep. John was still up, like reading his phone. So he had his phone kind of like close to his face, but everything else was pitch black dark. So he says that he heard a scraping sound in the hallway. And he thought, maybe one of the kids like pushed their door open and there was a laundry basket there. And that's what it kind of sounded like, was like plastic scraping on wood. So he put his phone down and looked down the hallway, but because he was staring at light and everything else was black, he couldn't really see anything down the hallway. Mm-hmm. So he waited to hear like footsteps of kids and nothing happened. And he just thought they went back to bed or whatever.
Y'all's door was closed or open?
It was open. So
he
should have been able to see down the hallway from where he was in bed.
Yeah.
But it was kind of blinded by his phone light. So he kind of just tried to go back to sleep or kept reading his phone, just ignored it. And that happened again. And then it happened again and again. And the third time, it was like this, like really loud, like it sounded like it was going all the way up the hallway and all the way back down. And he flipped and like grabbed me and woke me up. And it was at that point that I realized, I mean, we'd been married at that point for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years probably. I don't know. And I had never seen him scared before.
Wow.
I realized right then, I was like, oh, this is what scared John looks like. And I don't know what to do with it because that's usually me in the middle of the night.
Well, but you're glad he was the one hearing it, not you.
Yes, absolutely. It's one of those things too where like if you hear the noise, you want someone else to like validate it or go check it out. And I had been asleep and I didn't hear it. So we kind of like tried to work through all the explanations of what it could have been. But he was truly terrified. Wow. Truly terrified. So we processed that for like a couple of days and thought maybe there's something else going on in this house. But then small things started happening pretty frequently. Like the dryer would come on by itself or a toilet would flush, which I grew up in a house that had like electrical issues sometimes. And so like electrical things didn't really freak me out. I just kind of thought, oh, there's probably like a surge in the line or maybe something. But like a toilet flushing, you have to press that. It's not electric. You have to try. Odd. You have to try to make that flush. So those kind of things were, startling.
Frequent, or just every now
and
then?
In the beginning, it was fairly frequent. In the beginning, it would be...
And is this because you guys were doing construction to the house and living here?
No, we actually remodeled before we moved in, so there wasn't anything really going on that gave like a normal explanation for those things. So I think the things that scared me the most were the noises. So the noise that John heard obviously terrified him. But most of the sounds that I heard in the house were footsteps. So lots of footsteps like in the back. We have 2 sets of stairs, and the back stairs, the back is where we're sort of hearing most of the energy from. That's where the scraping sound came from. The dryer's back there. The toilet that flushed was back there. The stairs that I hear footsteps on are back there. And so we kind of have wondered if it's all kind of concentrated on that side of the house. But the scariest thing that ever happened to me before we kind of realized that the ghost meant no harm, when we were in the throes of what is going on in this house, was I came home from grocery shopping, walked into the kitchen, and I was totally by myself. Kids were at school. Nobody was at home. And I set grocery bags down. So I was kind of bent over, like putting grocery bags down on the ground. And I mean, just as loud as it could have been if it really happened, a child ran through the kitchen.
No.
Like shook the floor, like footsteps very clearly, like
right past you?
Felt the breeze. Like I literally thought, oh my gosh, one of my kids is home and I didn't know it. And I looked, I mean, obviously nobody was here, but it was very crazy. Distinguishable. Like it was not, and that was the scariest I've ever been. Because I literally just froze and was like, there's no denying that that's what that was. You can't make that up in your head. I wasn't thinking that way. I wasn't.
Yeah, it's not, I mean, unless you have hallucinations that you're aware of.
Right. Don't think I'm schizophrenic. The jury's out probably, but that was clear as day. And I panicked. I mean, I just froze.
What did you do?
I froze forever. And I called John and I asked him again if anyone was home. Just wondering. Maybe I heard
because
something.
You're probably in a state of mind where you're wondering, is someone in the house?
Yes. Like maybe he came home from work and I didn't know it and I heard something else. But no, of course, he doesn't know what's going on. Nobody's there. That was the scariest I'd ever been. So fast forward maybe a month or two later, and my family, like my mom and my brother, came to stay with us. My brother, who was super into like paranormal shows and, gadgets, brought his computer that he had set to record overnight.
Oh, he's for real into this thing.
He's serious. He was not. And I was kind of rolling my eyes like, that's cute, So he stayed in that back area. So he slept in that room and left his computer like recording all night.
Is that a guest bedroom?
Yes. Yes.
Just
so
for
if you want to be a guest.
Audience,
and I'm thinking about listing that area on Airbnb, and I kind of wonder if I should sell it as a haunted area.
I'd say so.
There's not a lot of action back there.
Maybe we can do a survey on the show.
I can create some action back there.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of dirty. Not like that.
But if people are looking for the experience.
Yeah. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, he stayed back there, left his computer on all night long. It's one of those programs that records over a long period of time, and then you can either like accelerate or slow down the sound that comes through. And so the next day he's playing with it, you know, kind of compressing the file. And I mean, almost, I should send you this file because we have the audio file.
Can we use that?
I'll have to see if he still has it, but he did at one point. Like, he had it saved. But it said, "Who is it?"
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did. Like, it was a whispered, like, "Who is it?"
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah. So my mom was with us, and she kind of felt the same way that I did about the whole, like, you know, gadget recording.
Up there and leave it to record, or was he up there the whole time while it was recording?
Yeah, he like slept in that room and just left it recording. So he was in there the whole night, obviously sleeping while this was happening.
And then when he listened to it the next day.
Yeah. So we were sitting on the couch, he was playing with it, he played that, and we all, like, my mom's jaw hit her lap. I mean, it was very unsettling.
Yeah.
So after that, we kind of talked through it. Like, I wonder if they really just don't know who we are. Like, is the who is it question about him specifically, or is it like our family? We're new to the house. And I think I kind of thought, well, it can't hurt to like let them know who we are. I don't know if this is real or not, but I'm just going to say. So I literally, after that happened, walked back into that bedroom and said, "We're the Carrol family. We have 4 kids. Here are their ages. We mean no harm. We love this house.
Yeah.
We're happy you're here. Just please don't scare us." And I will say, after that, our incidences have dropped off dramatically. We still have sounds and noises, and there's been a few things that have been odd in the house, but nothing has scared us since then. And that might just be our frame of mind. Like, we know, okay.
Yeah,
We've told them who we are. It's sweet Henrietta. She's just doing some laundry upstairs. Apparently, she likes to do laundry. I don't know.
Yeah, she gets bored.
Yeah.
And she still has energy to run.
I guess. She's running past me in the kitchen. That was really bizarre.
Yeah.
That was bizarre. So I think, too, you know, that you can kind of write off a lot of that stuff in your head. Sometimes you can kind of say, okay, maybe that was this, maybe that was this.
Like psychologically?
Yeah, just kind of like, yes, I think a lot of it you want to come up with other reasons. And I'm sure that will be people that listen to this and want to say, oh, well.
But likewise, it could go the other way, I think.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm just oblivious
I know.
to my surroundings.
Yeah.
When there could be paranormal stuff happening and I'm just not aware of it. Does that make sense?
That's even worse, Rebecca.
Yeah, it's only worse because
like I think that it's not happening and I'm just making it up. Not the other way around.
Yeah. Well, like I lived in a house. Obviously, I've lived in a house, but like my sister and somebody else has both seen a presence in that house, and like that's something I want to see. Yeah. And I haven't gotten that. Not that I'm like
you're like maybe I don't have the sixth sense.
Yeah, like maybe I just don't have it.
Yeah.
You know, so it works the other way.
Yep.
Like I just don't have that. Skill or whatever.
So I think, you know, we've had obviously like my brother and that experience, and, you know, John and I have both heard things. The kids have said things. We don't talk openly to them about it because I don't want to totally freak them out. Bedtime's hard enough. I don't want them thinking there's a ghost in their room. But, but they will say things like very casually, like, oh yeah, the toilet just flushed. Like I think that they know, like, oh yeah, that's just a thing that happens in our house. But haven't necessarily let us know that they think or know there is.
Yeah. See, that's what I'm talking about.
Experience.
Like,
and they might just,
They just think like, oh, toilet's flush every now and again.
Yeah, it's just, Henrietta has to go sometime.
Yeah.
Just got to take care of her business. It's fine.
Yeah.
But the thing that, that actually just happened really recently that kind of made me go, oh, this is a real thing. Our housekeeper comes once a week. She's been coming, you know, for years, and she comes with usually her sister. It's usually her sister or her sister-in-law, and she was just a few weeks ago was cleaning and we were talking about some stuff, and I kind of just in passing mentioned our ghost. It didn't come up like, oh, that's exactly what we're talking about. I just said, I don't remember how it came up, but I said something. And she stopped, like put down her cloth and said, oh, I didn't want to tell you, but your house is haunted. She thought that she was like keeping us from this big secret. And
yeah, it was nice of her to continue cleaning.
yeah, so I was like, whoa. Like, you know that and you've had experiences with it? And she was like, my sister-in-law does not like to come here. I was like, how many houses do y'all clean? I mean, 10 houses, and she does not like to come here. But we talked about like sort of their experiences. One of the girls that comes with her to clean was up in an upstairs bedroom and saw someone behind her like take a picture. Like it was a flash up against the wall.
No.
And she turned around and thought literally someone was in the room taking a flash picture. And of course somebody was there. And then they heard noises in that back bedroom. So this is interesting. Before we actually owned a dog, I put beware of dog signs on the windows and letting our secret out. Because I had heard that that's like a really big deterrent for theft. If they see, they don't want to mess with houses that have dogs. So I just put like those signs, even though we did not own an animal at the time.
You do now.
We do now. We have a big scary dog and she will tear you to pieces. So they had heard noises back in that back room, and they said it sounded just like an animal was like back there running around. And you know, our cleaning lady came out and the sister was like, oh, did you hear that? And she said, oh yeah, but look, she has a dog. See that sign? It says, beware of dog. And then later that day I came home and she said something about, and I remember her saying something about the dog. And I just said, like, we don't have a dog. And she quickly brushed past the subject, but she brought that story up a couple of weeks ago with great clarity. Remembered exactly me saying, we don't have a dog. Yeah. Because they were convinced that there was an animal back there. So their stories, I think I was kind of like, oh,
they could have more than one ghost.
Maybe they have animals. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they have pets.
Kids, animals, the whole thing.
Yeah.
They like
the whole
to
family.
do laundry and run through the kitchen.
And bathroom.
Yeah. So who knows?
Wow. Now there was a story about someone coming to your door with photographs.
Oh yeah. Okay. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's really crazy.
Yeah. Because even for people that don't believe in ghosts, this might kind of creep.
And this is like one of those things that like happens in the movies. Like okay. So I was in nursing school at the time and was, this was like one of the first summers that we lived here. So I was gone like almost all day. And the nanny was here with kids. So they were out of school. She was here during the summer days. I came home like, 5 or 6 o'clock. And she hands me this big manila envelope that has all these old pictures of the house and some of the people that used to live here. So like kind of those creepy, I will give you some of these photographs that you can post if you want to.
Yeah.
They are crazy, weird and spooky, and also really, really cool. I mean, they're black and white and they're, faded out, and they have like all these cool cars in some of them from the front of the house, like just old. Wow. So really awesome to have.
Yeah. Some
of them are a little scary because I think Henrietta's in one of them. But the lady apparently told the nanny, the nanny told me, she was kind of elderly, and she just said, these pictures stay with the house, and left. So she's thinking, she was kind of weirded out by it, but thought, I guess...
You guys know about it.
Yes, I guess this is someone
because
that they knew.
Because that's all she said, these go with the house.
These stay with the house.
These stay with the house.
And then left. So we obviously were like, who in the hell dropped off these pictures? We know the previous owners. They live still in the neighborhood.
Really?
We're
you met them?
in contact with her.
Okay.
She did not drop off the pictures. We know before that there were only there was the family that built this house was here until like the 80s, until they like kind of died off. I mean, that was really it. So that's why we kind of think one of them is one of the daughters that was here in a hoarder and filled up every room in this house with stuff.
Did you see the house when it was just filled with stuff? Or no?
No, because that house, the family that we know, cleaned it out in the 80s. Like, they bought it.
That's right. It went to them first. Okay.
They literally found, like, they had a whole room of just hats. Like, they cleaned it out and found, like, furniture under, like, a whole set of furniture underneath. Like, it was, like, book stereotypical hoarded. The whole house was.
And you said this house is what, 5,000 square feet?
Yeah. One lady did that.
Wow.
One lady. So I think she might have some attachment to the home.
Yeah.
In some capacity. I think that's probably, if it's any of those people, it's her.
It would be her.
So anyway, all that to say, we know the previous owners, and none of them were the ones that dropped the pictures off. We've asked everyone in the neighborhood. We have like a neighborhood Facebook page. We've asked them. Nobody can identify strange elderly woman that dropped off these amazing pictures.
Yeah.
That was really weird.
Where do you keep them?
We've blown some of them up, and they're like, we framed some of them.
Oh, nice.
And then the rest are in my office. I'll have to show you the Henrietta picture.
Yeah.
She's like wearing this like long black dress, and like, of course she's not smiling, and I think she has a cigarette in her hand. I mean, it is like Hollywood typical creepy movie.
Wow. Look at that.
It's pretty cool.
Henrietta,
I know. Some of the neighbors have told us a few stories that were almost more like poltergeistish, like doors opening in front of them. Those kind of things, which again, that's what makes me think, I really think that Henrietta means no harm.
Right.
I think she might miss her hat collection.
Maybe you need to get your brother to...
Yeah, go record.
And
then announce your presence.
Announce the presence.
That's the secret, guys.
Yeah.
Just announce your presence.
Become friendly.
Like, we like the house. We're here to stay.
Yeah. And I bet Henrietta probably appreciates what you've done with the home. It looks beautiful.
She's like, that's a good color scheme.
It's a good color scheme. Yeah.
She approves.
Thank you for not turning this into a duplex.
She approves of our IKEA furniture and Target. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. I bet she approves.
I think she might.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Ashley.
Yeah.
Carol. And are you okay that I stated your last name just
Absolutely.
then? Okay.
That's fine.
For your stories of Snowden, your Snowden home.
For Henrietta. Thank you, Henrietta. Thank you.
For our listeners, please visit our show notes, and you will find pictures of Henrietta, a picture of Henrietta along with other photos, and we hope you enjoy. All right, what'd you think?
That was awesome. I don't think we need any more ghost stories for this episode. Okay, I have two main thoughts.
Okay.
One, either put the haunted part of the house on Airbnb or just chop it up. Like, get rid of it.
Like, destroy that part of the house?
Yeah, it's crazy haunted.
Yeah.
Just chop it off.
But,
be done with it.
But she's proven to be a pleasant ghost.
Yeah, I'm kidding. It is kind of weird. I mean, those are weird stories.
Yeah.
You know, it kind of makes me wonder, like, are these things ghosts? Or is it like maybe time is not, like time as a dimension is not what we think it is? Because it, like, a couple of her stories made me think, what if, like, there are other people living in this house in some other dimension of time and they feel like the Carrolls are ghosts and they saw a man sleeping in the bed and they're like, who is it? And then they were trying to take a picture of the ghost and that's what the housekeeper... Yeah. Like, she was their ghost.
That's interesting. Yeah, just like The Others, you know that movie? Where, like, the ghost thinks she's the real person. I love
that movie.
Oh, I hope I didn't ruin that for anyone.
It is so old that if someone hasn't seen it, they should have.
And that's a movie reference you actually got. I'm happy about that.
I love that movie. I watched it so many times.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Really good.
So spooky.
Okay. Whew. All right. So,
yeah.
Do you have one to introduce?
Yeah. Let me cue it up here.
Oh, who is it?
So this ghost story, I actually recorded right after our Earnestine and Hazels recording.
That's right.
So we were there together at the restaurant, bar, whatever. And after that, I met up with my sister-in-law and brother-in-law and my sister-in-law's brother for brunch. And he told me, my sister-in-law's brother, Brian, told me a ghost story from E&H. Mm. And so at first we were going to make it a bonus episode along with E&H. And then I decided, no, I'll put it in our ghost story Halloween episode instead.
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so Kaitlyn here, and I have just been at Earnestine and Hazels with Rebecca and Clarence learning all about the place, and I came down the street to meet up with some family at Bedrock Eats, and found out that someone here at my table has an E&H story to share, and so I thought we should hear it. So I'm going to let you meet Brian.
I'm Brian Cook. I live downtown for about 3 years, and I've been to E&H many times, and this is a story about the first time I've been there. Walk in, place is crowded, music's playing, I'm meeting a couple friends there, and I grab a beer and walk upstairs into one of the old bedrooms, and this was before they painted it, so there's still like a lot of creepy burn scars on it. It looked, add a lot of character. It was awesome. And my friends were already in there, and they're asking me, "Oh my gosh, did you see this guy just walk down the hallway?" And I said, "No, it's completely empty up here. I didn't see anybody except you guys." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, this guy just came in into the room and was like, 'Hey, you guys want to see a trick?'" And to paint the scene, this room has 2 couches and 1 table with a lamp on it, and the lamp is the sole source of light.
So it's pretty dark.
Yes,
Okay.
It's dark. And the guy walks up to the lamp, twists the light bulb, and it turns red. And everyone's like, "Oh, cool." Twists it, turns it back to light, and he's like, "See y'all later," and walks out. And I'm like walking in the room as apparently this guy is walking out, and I don't see him at all. And so it's pretty creepy. Well, naturally, the first thing that one of the other guys was going to do is go up to the lamp and be like, "Oh, I got to see if I can do this."
Yeah.
Turns the light bulb, keeps turning, turns off. Twists it back on, turns on, twists it, turns off. Couldn't get it to go back to red. Never saw the guy.
That's crazy.
That's the story.
And you know, it used to be a brothel, so turning red for
Oh,
the
there
red
you
light.
go.
Yeah. That's crazy. That's a very cool first visit to E&H.
Yeah. And so now I go all the time.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing with us.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
So he saw a ghost in action.
Yeah, a magician ghost, I guess.
Yes. That's amazing.
Yeah, isn't that cool? I mean, E&H, everybody says it's haunted.
Yeah.
Like, go back. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, go back because it's, we talk a little bit about, like, the haunted jukebox, and
Yeah.
there's some links in our show notes to more ghost stories. Oh, which I guess, show notes for that with links are memphisttypehistory.com/EH. Show notes for this episode will be memphisttypehistory.com/
Halloween 17. And on there, we will find pictures of Ashley's home with the weird photos that was sent to her house mysteriously. And hopefully that recording, if her brother still has it.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. But I don't know. Should we only let our Patreon supporters hear it?
Or we could let our Patreon supporters hear it. Yeah, that actually would be kind of fun.
All right. Yeah. Patreon only for that ghostly audio.
Yes.
If we get our hands on it. Ha 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 ha. What? Just $1 a month. That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
To hear the ghost.
So you said you had another person, right?
Yes. So this ghost story came via SpeakPipe.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I asked for people to submit some ghost stories, and this is one of the ones that we got. And I'll play it for you now.
Hey, this is Josh Plog. I'm a paranormal researcher in town, and I have to give a shout out to my friends over at Historical Haunts. I've gone on a couple of their tours, and my favorite is the one at the Woodrow Fontaine House in Victorian Village. My first time there, in Molly's room, I got to see a flashlight that would turn itself on and off in response to yes or no questions as a way of kind of answering it. I did another trip there just a couple of nights ago, and we set up little balls that when you hit them, they light up all over the room. And once again, in that same room, those things were going crazy because something kept hitting them that we couldn't see. And the bed in the bedroom had an imprint like a fist that sank down into it, even though the bed was straightened out when we first got in there. I've seen a couple other things, but those are the two that really stand out. Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, right?
Experiencing something at the same place. And like
yeah,
that.
I had so many questions.
Well, thank you. What's his name again?
Josh Plock.
Thank you, Josh Plock, for leaving that Speak Pipe message to us.
Yeah, that was awesome. I got another story from Devin Graney. I interviewed him not that long ago for an episode on ghost signs, which will come out at some point soon.
That's how that name sounded familiar. Okay.
Yes. And he told me a ghost story.
All right.
So I'm going to play that for you now.
All right, let's listen in.
This was in 1871, and it's at the corner of... it's at 683 South 5th Street, which I believe is Georgia and 5th. There's a very generic warehouse that was built in the original location was knocked down in 72. And there was this girl, her name was Clara Robertson, and it was a girls' school, and she was being a good girl practicing her piano one day, and a girl shows up to her in a pink moldy dress, and she could see through her. Of course, she freaked out. She ran, which most of us would have done likewise. And then one day, the girl showed up again. She says, "Don't be alarmed, Clara. My name is Lizzie. I will not hurt you." And I said, "Okay, I'm intrigued." And this ghost girl, told her about where there's some buried treasure. And, she told some people, said, wait a minute, there was a girl about 10 years ago named Lizzie who died, and she was buried in a pink dress. That sounds like her. So the word got out, and people were going around, and the story was that the ghost girl told her where to dig to find this buried treasure. And a bunch of people were going out. So all these people, what else was there to do back in 1871? They all went out to see them dig, and the guys couldn't find it. And then Clara says, well, let me give a crack at it. And so she's digging, and she finds this jar and says, well, Lizzie told me not to open this for 2 months. So what they did, they were going to open it on stage, and I forgot where, and then they were selling tickets. Half was going to go to their Episcopal church, and the pastor said, no, we don't want any of that. We don't want to look like we're promoting the occult here, but, go ahead and open your jar. And, was going to go there, but then within 2 months, they got a knock on the door. Some tough hombres came up there with their 6-shooters, said, "Where's the jar?" And they took the jar, and we'll never know what was in there. Here's what I think. I think it was a practical joke, and it's not so much a ghost story to me. I think it was a joke, but it was a really good one. I mean, you had the whole town all out there, so it's more like it's more like a 1871 version of Punk'd, if you ask me. But it was such a good story, though. I mean, it was a good joke. I mean, you got to admire people for pulling one off that well. That they had the whole city fascinated, going out to see them dig under the tree to find this. And in fact, the fact she found a jar, and girls back then, they wore long skirts, so she could have the jar under the skirt or something and then dropped it.
So you think she was the I guess perpetrator of the joke?
Probably her and her family. That this was probably all staged. Of course,
Well, if people hadn't come and taken the jar, then they sort of did make their own treasure by selling all these tickets and everything. They created a buried treasure.
I guess they they went to Ticketmaster and refunded them or something, but I didn't get into that part of it. But I have a feeling the robbers probably didn't exist. That was probably just a story.
Oh, how they got out of it. Makes sense.
That's what I'm guessing. This was probably planned to begin with, and of course, tonight, if the ghost of Clara Robinson comes and starts shaking me and says, "How can you lie?" I will publicly apologize to everybody for my theory.
Oh, that's great. So it sounds like you're not a believer. You're not
here's my
not
thing.
sure about ghosts.
I've never seen a ghost before. I'm not saying. I mean, I believe in God. I pray. I go to church. I don't have to have something physical in front of me to believe it. But if you told me that you had seen a ghost once or you had experienced a ghost or something, I wouldn't think you were crazy. I'm just saying I personally haven't seen one. But it's just like everything went well. That I mean, it could have been a great practical joke like the Cottingham fairies or something like that. And
Wait, what is that?
It was about like 1910 or something. Photography was still kind of new, and the cameras can't lie. This was before Photoshop. And these little girls in England, they found a picture book with fairies in them, and they cut them out, and then they put them on hat pins, and they put them in trees, and they had themselves posing with the little fairies and stuff, and people were like, "Whoa, they found fairies!" It was like, how isn't it made up?
Funny.
Well, it's photography. It's not like they drew it or anything. It's got to be
That's
real.
funny.
Yeah, and it was like 80 years ago. I mean, 80 years later, or maybe 70 years later, these now elderly women say, "Oh yeah, we pulled one out. That was a joke. Come on, we just
that's
kept
funny.
going. We kept it going."
I guess I don't think of like people in the late 1800s being like practical jokers, but I mean, why not?
Yeah,
That's funny.
I mean, who knows? It's you kind of. I'm curious what daily life was like back then. But
Yeah, so this story he told me, it was like a ghost story. It's a ghost story, but his theory is that it was a practical joke, not a ghost story.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with that. I bet it was all advertised or for some PR.
Yeah, his theory convinced me. Because it does make sense, even like she was able to hide the jar maybe under her dress or something and like make it seem like it came out of the hole that they dug.
Yeah. And it was just one person that got the sighting of a ghost, and that was it.
Yeah, that's true. Like it was just the one.
So everyone just believed it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's sweet.
Yeah.
It's a sweet story.
Yeah. So the story of the ghost that brought a town together.
Yeah. Let's do a movie trailer for that. So we're going to end this episode with a very famous landmark that houses at least one very famous ghost. And that landmark is the Orpheum.
Yay.
Yeah.
I bet there are many people who have listened to this whole episode already and are like, how are they doing a ghost Halloween episode without talking about the Orpheum? Now they can no longer be angry and they can feel satisfied instead.
Yes, and I think they'll be very satisfied because after interviewing Renee Brame, she's the director of marketing for Special Productions, and she so kindly sat down with me and filled us in on several stories of the ghost, one in particular that is really sweet. I just found all of it to be very endearing. I already love the Orpheum, and I think this just put a little extra warmth in my heart, even though ghosts are technically cold. So I think we're going to end it with this, and Renee Brame will sign us off at the very end. So before that, we'll just remind everyone that our show notes are memphistypehistory.com/Halloween17, since it's 2017 and this is our Halloween episode.
Yeah.
And so it
makes a lot of sense. Very logical.
Yes. Logical, but tragical. Sorry, that was from Nostradamus. And go check out our show notes because I think it's going to be a good treat. Not a trick.
Oh.
Yeah. You will find pictures from Ashley's home in Snowden, the weird, mysterious photographs that need to stay with their house. And hopefully that recording, along with photos of the Orpheum that you'll hear about in this end of the episode.
Cool. I think we might, if we get our hands on that ghost talking recording, we might put it in show notes, but we're thinking about putting it on Patreon only for our Patreon supporters. So if you want to hear it.
How do you become a Patreon supporter?
Oh, you would go to Patreon, patreon.com/Memphis Type History, and support the show for as little as $1 a month, and then you can hear a ghost.
Yeah, a true ghost.
And you can get more stuff too.
Yes. All right, so without further ado, this is Renee Brame from the Orpheum. Okay, and I just learned that you also host this event that happens in October.
Well, a little more behind the scenes. So I helped write the scripts for each tour stop. There are 3 tour stops. So they go to the grand lobby, to the mezzanine, and into the pit, into the orchestra pit, because there's been lots of ghostly activity in the orchestra pit. So that, and then a staged reading based on, a lot of it was based on an article that was written for Memphis Magazine in 1970 something. Okay. Before 1980, I'm sure. Okay. But there was a great article written in Memphis Magazine in the late 70s that is a lot of fun.
Okay, we'll have to look into that. So for our listeners, in case you don't know, we're here at the Orpheum because it's known as being a place that is haunted.
Yes.
Right? And is it one particular ghost?
There are a few. We have one very famous ghost. So a little Orpheum history. It is the original building that stood here was the Grand Opera House. It was around in 1890. Then vaudeville came along. So about 1907, it became the Orpheum. The fire was in 1923. The entire place burned to the ground.
What started the fire?
Something, I think they said in the dressing rooms. There was a vaudeville show going on. There was an act called...
this was during a performance?
Yeah, during a performance.
Wow.
There was Blossom Seeley was performing, and Jewel and her mannequins, which were these puppets, these mannequin puppets. So they were all just rushing around trying to get Blossom's costumes and get Jewel's, puppets out before they burned. Wow. There's pictures that I can share with you. You can probably put them up of the Orpheum actually on fire. There's smoke coming out of the window, but they couldn't save it. Yeah. Completely burned to the ground. And then in 28, that's this building that was rebuilt from 1928. Okay. So I forget what I was talking about.
The Orpheum that we see now looks like the Orpheum from
before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They worked really hard to make sure that it was sort of restored to its grand luster. So the lobby looks similar. Malco Theaters owned the Orpheum in the 70s, and so they changed several things on the inside. But when the Memphis Development Foundation got the building in 1977 is when Malco sold it, and the Development Foundation bought it because there was talk of it being torn down and made into a parking lot for downtown parking. Oh, wow. So Memphis Development Foundation got it in 77 and restored it to that 1928, which was originally built to go back to that 1923 time. So it's sort of continued since the 20s. Keep trying to go back to that time.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened after the fire? I'm guessing.
So here we are. Yeah. So the most famous ghost is Mary.
I've heard of Mary.
Mary has a couple of different origin stories. No one can say for sure. Some people think that she was hit by a trolley outside the Orpheum in 1921, and they carried her into the Orpheum, and she died here. Oh. Others think that she died in the fire. That's a little more of a convenient story, you know, that she was already here and she died in the fire and stayed here.
Okay.
There is one other story. Some say that she died downtown somewhere in the 20s and wandered in.
And, that's a nice place to go into.
Yeah. But all of these stories involve Mary being about 12 or 13 years old. Mm-hmm. She has brown braids and a white dress for the people that have seen her. And she came here sometime between 1920 and 1923.
Wow.
Somewhere around there. And she's been here ever since.
And that's distinct, like the brown braids and the white dress. And this is something that people
say they've seen.
Since the 20s have seen.
Yeah.
Okay.
People say they have seen. Up to, there was an employee who was here. This was maybe 10 years ago, maybe not even that long ago. Her daughter was here while she was working and, had gone into one of the cracks and crevices of the Orpheum because there's, millions of them here, and was watching a movie or something on her iPad. And she came back and said, Mommy, I'm having a great time with this little girl. She's so much fun to play with. Whose daughter is that? And there was no other little kid there that day.
Weird.
Yes. But she described her, and it was a kid, and she didn't know about Mary. She said, the little kid. She's got a white dress on. She has brown braids. She's long hair. And they never figured out who it was. So up until very recently, people are still seeing her.
Yeah.
I've been looking for her
Even
forever, and I've never found her.
Someone read somewhere that she made a debut during the King and I's performance or something. Is there?
Yeah, like during I think this was in the 80s, that King and I.
Oh, okay.
If you're familiar with the movie, Yul Brynner played the king, and it was a very iconic role for him. He traveled around the world playing the king.
Okay.
And he was on stage at the Orpheum playing the king in the 80s, and he felt her. A lot of people describe feeling like this really intense feeling of cold when they experience her. And I think he felt that, dropped to his knees, scared out of his mind, went off stage, and they had to bring him back.
Oh.
So he was okay, but he really felt something very serious.
Wow. One of the performers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The King and I just played recently.
Yeah, just recently.
Any other experience like the same? Reenactment? No?
No, I think Mary she may have had a big crush on Yul Brynner. Who
That's
knows?
gotta be it.
A lot of people really loved him. His little bald head. They loved him so much. Yeah. But she's been around since the 20s, and the most stories that I have heard really involve the Wurlitzer, which we have an organ that was delivered here when the building was rebuilt in 1928. So the Orpheum and the Wurlitzer are both going to turn 90 next year.
Wow.
Together. And so it's the Mighty Wurlitzer organ. If you've ever come to our summer movie series, you've seen it played. And she's still pumping out that music. But people have to go down there and do a lot of maintenance on her, on the Wurlitzer. Yeah. It lives in the basement. It's what we call it the dungeon. She lives in the dungeon. But maintenance men that have come out to work on her, their tools will be just out of reach. They'll turn around to look at something. They'll turn back and their tools have moved so that they can reach them.
And they're the only ones down there.
The only ones down there. The same guy was here to fix something, and it was later in the evening, and he couldn't get it to work. So he took a break. He went and got some coffee. He came back, and it was completely fixed. Yeah. So it's just like strange stuff. Then you're like, well, it really just only could be Mary.
Yeah.
People love that, So, and that same intense, like cold feeling, several people have reported, sitting at the organ and feeling that cold. And you look around like for an air vent or something, and it's not there. It's not there.
So possibly her presence is strongest where this organ is?
Yeah, I think so. Where the organ is and on stage. She's messed with actors, like we said, with Yul Brynner. She messed with the cast of Annie. I think that may have been in the 80s, too. There was a big dollhouse that was in the show, and it got moved from stage all the way up to the mezzanine. And it was a really heavy dollhouse. Like, no one would have done it as a joke because it was too heavy to do.
Like, it just showed up in the mezzanine?
It showed up in the mezzanine, and nobody knows how it happened.
No way.
Yeah. So they think Mary did that because the girl that played Annie in that production swears she had to hide in a laundry cart in one of the scenes, and she swears there was someone in there with her, and they were talking, but she couldn't understand what they were saying.
That's creepy.
Yeah. And so there's that, like, little girl, that show has tons of little girls in it, so it just feels like maybe Mary felt a kinship with some of them.
Yeah. Which, it helps.
Yeah.
A little less creepy though. We know that your ghost is innocent.
She is. She's very sweet and innocent, and she mainly stays, I think, Wurlitzer on stage.
It just comes out for a show every now and again.
Yeah, just comes out for a bit. There's been a couple of groups that have come in and used actual Ouija boards and tried to contact Mary. And one group, I wrote down when, like in 1979, I think. This is when Vincent Astor came in. Vincent is a long time, he was an employee of the Orpheum, big supporter, plays the organ. He's very familiar with the Wurlitzer. He brought a group in and looking for Mary. And he was playing her favorite song is Never Never Land from Peter Pan. He's playing that on the organ. And part of his group saw a little girl dancing in the lobby, and they walked toward her and she disappeared. But then something happened in the broom closet. Like it started rattling, and they got so scared they didn't look in it. They just ran back into the theater. And that apparently went on for like 45 minutes. They'd go back, look out the door. She'd be there. They'd walk up. She'd disappear.
Oh, several sightings of her.
Yeah. Over and over again. It kept happening, and she kept disappearing. And the whole time, Vincent is playing Neverland on the Wurlitzer inside.
Yeah.
So that one is one of my favorites. I just can picture them all in there, just trying to find her and getting really scared about it. But she's our main floor spirit. We've got a couple of others. One is David, who I haven't heard as many stories about him being sighted, but the story is that David came here to get Mary.
Another kid?
To help her, to help her cross over to the other side, to get her out of the Orpheum, that she won't leave.
She likes it here.
Yeah, and he can't leave until she does. So he's hanging out. And then the third one that I've heard more stories about is Eleanor. She's our balcony spirit. Okay. So she mainly sticks to the balcony. She's a little more sad. People report hearing her crying a lot in the balcony. They get that cold feeling when they go up there.
Certain part of the balcony? Or
no, I think she moves around. She moves around. One of my favorite Eleanor stories is when this was a Malco, there was an usher. It's when people ushered you, to your seat at the movies. There was an usher and that looked up, and no one was allowed to sit in the balcony at the time. It was only orchestra floor seating for the movies. And he saw a little girl in the balcony. So he went up there to tell her to come down. And when he got there was no little girl anymore, but there was a woman sitting up there who had, she was on a lunch break, and she had just decided to go up there and eat her lunch. And they started talking. They fell in love. They got married.
No way.
Yes. I love that story. But
so it's like the ghosts brought them together.
Yeah. So I mean, it's got to be Eleanor, because Mary doesn't go up there all that often. But yeah.
But the most sightings have been Mary.
Most have been Mary. Yeah.
How do you feel like you can distinguish? Well, the sightings, obviously, you can distinguish the sightings. But as far as the presence, how can you distinguish, or is there a way to distinguish?
Well, it's usually when it's a presence, you it's Mary if it's the organ, or if you see that white dress or the braids. Yeah. And a lot of other times, it's more of a feeling that you get, like something isn't right, something isn't there. So in the 80s, a lot happened in the 80s. It was a very active time.
Was there anything unusual for the Orpheum in the 80s that could have caused that?
Well, the Development Foundation bought the building in 1977, and they had a lot of work to do to restore it. So probably by the 80s is when they had actually started restoring the building. The Broadway season that we know today had really kicked off, probably more in the 80s, like early 80s. Mm-hmm. So it's just when they really started kicking off and moving forward once Malco had sold it.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. There's going to be more people and more activity happening.
Yeah, there was more people probably here than ever before, because like I said, with the Malco, they only filled the floor for movies. Uh-huh. And with these Broadway shows, all 3,000 seats were being occupied from floor to gallery. So there was just more people too to play with.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. But in, 1984, this is when this was, there was an Egyptian president who had been assassinated. That was Anwar Sadat.
Okay.
He had just been assassinated. His wife, Jahan, had come to Memphis to the opening of the Egyptian gallery at the university, which is still there. It opened in 1984, and she came for the opening and was going to come to a symphony concert here at the Orpheum. Because she was coming here, there was security that had to be done. Mm-hmm. So they had to completely clear the building. No one was allowed in. They brought in bomb-sniffing dogs. And there was one Orpheum employee that took the security and the dogs through each level to make sure that it was safe for her to come in. And everything was going fine until they got to the gallery. And the dogs went to the door and stopped and just laid down. And they wouldn't go in. No matter what they did, they never went in. And that employee, he still works here. That's Richard. And Richard was there that day. He saw those dogs. They would not do it. And they really do think that it was that sort of, those dogs felt something up there. And that's the kind of spirit, like that kind of feeling people get, even if they don't see something.
Especially with animals, because, they sense stuff that we don't.
Yeah, so intuitive. Yeah. And they're like, I don't know if there's bombs in there, but there's something else in there, and we're not going. Yeah, we're not going to do it.
Amazing. Yeah. The Orpheum itself is so lovable. Mm-hmm. And just hearing you tell me about these different ghosts gives it a whole other life, Yeah. Which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
That it's not just one ghost, and that the ghosts kind of, in a sense, are playing.
We really do. I think we all sort of feel like we're caretakers for them. Yeah. Like we really do love them. They're as much a part of the staff and the personality of what the Orpheum is as anyone else. Mm-hmm. And so we try to really hold on to their stories, document them when we can, and make sure that we share them so that they're never forgotten if they decide to not, play around with anyone for a while.
Yeah, and just to note again, you said these are stories from the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
all the way through.
Yeah, that's good evidence for me to believe that this is true.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun, no matter what. There's a great picture, and that's one I can get for you too. There's a picture that Richard, who was there with the dogs. There was a little boy that called him and said, I'd like to do a school project on Mary. I heard you have a ghost. Can I come try to get her to come out and take a picture of her for school? Okay. And Richard is an extremely kind and wonderful man. He said, absolutely, come on out, you and your mom. I'll take you upstairs. You can look around for her. So they were in one of the loge boxes on the side, those boxes, and he had a little tape recorder, and he played, scary music, and like whatever in his like kid brain was going to bring Mary out. And he's taking pictures, and it was when we used this thing called film in cameras, So he had to go home and develop the film, and then his mother called Richard in a panic. There's Mary in one of these photos.
No way.
My neighbor is from National Geographic, and he confirms that this is, this is a ghost in this picture. And he still has the picture. I have a copy of it that I like to share at dinner on stage.
Yeah.
It's her on stage. There's sort of a spectral figure that you can see backstage in the wings where the ropes are that they use to raise and lower, drops and curtains and things like that. There's this figure sort of running. And we hold on to that picture for dear life. We love it. The boy was so excited.
What era was that, or what time? Was it like a few years ago? Or?
No,
you said it was film.
Yeah, it was film, and he had 90s? A little tape recorder. It was probably the 90s, I want to say. Yeah, it was probably the mid-90s.
Before Photoshop was so accessible.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It was just a picture, and they could not, I don't think they expected to find anything, because he didn't experience it in the moment. He just saw it later in the picture.
I bet he's so excited.
Yeah. It was very cool. Very, very cool.
Okay, well, tell me again the October event, so we make sure to promote it
for next year. So we do an October dinner on stage. It's a haunted dinner, and you're welcome to come into the lobby. There's sort of a cocktail hour in the lobby, and then there are tours, so you get to hear a bit of the history and tales of the ghosts on the grand lobby staircase in the mezzanine, and then you get to go down into the orchestra pit, and which is a place people don't normally get to go, which is pretty cool. So you get to go into the pit and get that vantage point of the theater from down there, because you can see out from the hole in the stage. You can see the theater out from there.
Okay.
And hear all of the just luscious stories, and then you get to have dinner on the stage. It's like a 3-4 course meal.
It's really great.
Our president, Brett Batterson, will, he talks, takes questions. We want people to really get to know the Orpheum and feel like it's just as much their home as it is ours or a touring
I get that feeling.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing a good job.
Thanks.
So also, would we be able to get a picture of that Wurlitzer?
Yeah,
organ
we can go look and see if it's out.
Okay.
She has a little, I call her she has a room all to herself. She stays locked up. So when she's going to be played, they have to bring her out and put her on this pedestal. Like if you've been to the movies, you've seen that she can move up and down on the pedestal. So if she's out, we can take a picture. If not, I can bring you one.
Oh, that's what I meant. Like if you have a photo of it, if
absolutely.
you don't mind sharing that as well.
I will.
Okay.
I will. She's almost 90. Next year will be her big birthday.
That's amazing. So, and you said the birthday's the same as the Orpheum?
As this building. Yeah. The Wurlitzer campaign, Save the Wurlitzer. And then next year there will be more fanfare for sure. But 2018 is our big 9-0.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad we caught you right before.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
She's still standing in this beautiful place. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, are there any other spooks that you can think of or want to add?
Let me see. Let me go down my list. There's so many at this point. I have to write them all down.
Yeah.
Oh, I have to tell you my favorite one. Hold on.
Yes.
It's very short and very silly, but
No, take your time. This will be a great one to end with. That'll be awesome. Your favorite.
I believe that this was during the Malco days. There was housekeeping staff that was cleaning up after a movie, and she had all of her tools, the toilet brush and the scrubbers and stuff in a bucket, and was carrying it around the lobby. And she went to clean something, and the bucket was gone. And so she looked all over the place, could not find it. Finally, she goes into the bathroom. All of her cleaning tools have been taken out of the bucket and put into the toilet.
No.
Yes. And she swears that, just like with everything else, it was just, it was Mary or one of the other ghosts just playing with her. Just playing a prank and having a good time.
Yeah.
I love that, though.
Oh, the toilet.
Well, they're toilet clean now. They've been put into the water. That's my favorite. I love that one.
We're going to end with that one then.
Good.
Thanks for listening. This is Memphis Type History, the podcast.
We like your type.
You've been listening to Memphis Type History, the podcast. It would mean so much to us if you head over to iTunes and give us a rating and review. Be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode.
Want to be part of Memphis Type History and get behind-the-scenes content, merch, and more? Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Memphis Type History. That's Patreon, spelled patreon.com/Memphis Type History.
Find more Memphis Type History on our blog at memphistypehistory.com, on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest as Memphis Type History, and on Twitter at Memphis Type.
So, in case you guys don't realize this, Memphis Type History is not just a podcast, and you probably already know that it is a blog, but it's also a book. We wrote a book and published it in 2014, right?
We did.
And it's called Memphis Type History, Signs and Stories from Just Around the Corner, written by me, Kaitlyn, and illustrated by Rebecca. And, well, I don't know, that's not a good way to put it. Not illustrated by, but it has your Memphis Type illustrated paintings in it. So each of Rebecca's paintings is the jumping off point for the history in each chapter. And you can buy the book in Memphis.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. So one of the places in Memphis that you can get our book is More Than Words in Germantown.
More than words.
Oh, go ahead.
More than words, we love you.
Oh, I thought you were going to sing the song More Than Words.
Oh, more than words. Yes, thanks for reminding me of that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a good song.
It is.
And I have a fun history fact to tell you about Germantown, where More Than Words is located.
Oh, please tell.
During World War I, because there's a lot of anti-German sentiment in the U.S., Germantown changed its name.
Really?
Yeah, for a little while, it was briefly known as Neshoba, which is an Indian word that means wolf.
Oh, okay. And then it went back to Germantown.
Yeah. So if you want to go to Germantown, past Alias, Neshoba, head over to West Street and visit More Than Words and pick up our book.
More than words.